Hello, I'm Richard Vobes and I'm the Bald Explorer out on another walk, and this time I'm in Midhurst. Now, you might not think that I'm in Midhurst because I'm actually on the top of a hill surrounded by trees. I think they're chestnut trees because on the floor it's littered with loads of chestnuts, and I'm walking up what is actually St Anne's Hill to the old fortified manor house, and that's what I'm investigating today. I'm actually just walking through possibly where a great big arch once would have been, the south entrance to the fortified manor house. The St Anne's Hill is quite a promontory here in Midhurst. You've got to my left, which is Never Eat Shredded Wheat. To the west is the town, and it sort of drops down the main high street to the north, and to my right on the east is the sort of low-lying plains which can get a bit boggy. To the right, straight in front of me, is the north, and I believe there's quite an impressive ditch there, and then, as I say, to the south, the entrance to this rather interesting place with a slope down to the mill race of the old South Pond, which used to have a mill. A mill race is where the wheel would have been and the runoff of the river would have gone. To my east is the River Rother. So this is an interesting place. Now, I just want to show you some of the stuff that we can see here. If you see behind me as I make my way along, you'll see the remnants or the footings of an old fortified manor house. And actually this is sort of not actually accurate, because these footings were placed here in the early 20th century on the foundations of the original. So they're really just here to give us a marker. Unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be any display boards or interpretation boards to help us work out what bit is what. But let me tell you this, go back to the 1066 and the Norman invasion, and one of the principal players, apart from William the Conqueror, who was setting up castles all over the place, was Roger de Montgomery. He set up a castle in Shrewsbury, he set up a castle in Chichester, he set up a castle in Wales in a place called Montgomery after his own name, and one of the places he set up a castle, a wooden castle, was in Midhurst. Midhurst, by the way, I should just point out as I wander around this remarkable site, means the middle of a wooded hill, and that's exactly where we are, and you can see that, although the trees on the inside most likely were not here at all. There's a curtained wall which you can just about make out that runs around this site. I think it's about 15 acres in total. The curtain wall is 5.5 feet thick, so that's quite a big thing. But this wasn't the castle that Roger de Montgomery put up. No, he put up a wooden castle. Time passed, and then the de Bohun family were here, and very much lords of the manor, and that's when they decided to have a castle some time later. But they tired of this castle by 1273, and at that point there was a Sir John de Bohun. You can see the great curtain wall running off. Well, I need to get out of here because I want to tell you the next part of the story, but I need to find a way out. Oh, here we go. I think I can get down now. It's very wet and it's very slippery, so I've got to be a bit careful as I make my way down. Sir John de Bohun, he decided that living up here was not where he wanted himself to be stationed. Now, there may be many reasons for that. Perhaps the castle itself was falling to bits. I'm just going to step over this obstacle. So perhaps it was dilapidated. Perhaps the town was encroaching his manor far too much. The stench of the commoners, as it were. Perhaps he wanted to be a little further away, and perhaps being up here was too exposed. So he decided to build a different fortified manor house in a position that is only a few hundred yards from where we are, but in perhaps a more palatial area. And I'm making my way now down this. They put in a nice little step down the steep slope of the hill, which I'm sure you'll appreciate is very useful for somebody like myself and any visitor to the area. And we'll try and get down to see the actual castle itself. Now, they started building that in 1272. This one having only been up here for about 100 years before it was abandoned and then eventually pulled apart. Somewhere up there was a chapel to St. Denis. Now, if my research is correct, St. Denis, I think, is the patron saint of Paris. And, you know, they were Normans, and I suppose they were French. I suppose that makes some difference. Now the hill is St. Anne's Hill, and St. Anne was the grandmother to Jesus. So I suppose she deserves a sainthood. And I guess that's who it is. I mean, I don't know for sure. Anyway, work went on the new house. And we're going to try and get over there, but there's a great big puddle I've got to get through, and I've got to get through it twice. There we go. Now there is a rather wet and muddy field that I could go through, or I can follow the path, which is a little less quick. Anyway, the point is that the second house was built for the family, and it was built and it was very grand and it was all very nice. But that was superseded in the Tudor times in around 1520 by what we see today. Although what we see today is the ruins of a Tudor mansion house, crenellated, that had visits from Henry VIII, I think on two occasions, who was very envious of this estate. But sadly, later on, around 17, I can't remember the exact date, 63 or something like that, sometime in the latter 18th century, the house caught fire, and now what we see is the ruin. When John du Bowen first built the place, he went to a place that he called Cowdray, or Cowdray as we now call it. And of course, when it was superseded, it was naturally Cowdray. And that's what it is today. As you can see, it's a very impressive building. And of course, it's open to the public at certain times of the year. Here's the River Rother down by my side. And a rather impressive bridge, a stone bridge that you would have crossed, and then access to the town on a long drive. Standards were going up. You no longer needed a really fortified house. I mean, a lot of the fortifications there are just for effect rather than actual practice. Although, you know, an individual might have a bit of a problem getting in, but I'm sure an army certainly wouldn't. Now, we can't go in, as I say, but we can get up to the gate, and that's essentially what I'm going to do in this final moments of the video. Cross the bridge, cross the river down there, and just have a quick gander at the rather magnificent house that Midhurst is very much famous for. Now, I'm going to visit Midhurst again. Let's just come right up here and see if we can peer in through the gate like this, which is a bit cheeky. I'm going to visit Midhurst and look at the old town and the high street that it is. So that's most definitely worth coming back and having a look at. In the meantime, if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment. And I will say goodbye to the splendid remains of Cowdray House. Until the next time, goodbye.